2005, September of 05, Mini Cooper. A little 4-cylinder engine, non-turboed. Customer complaint on this one is engine lights on, and he was told cylinder 3, which is this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, so cylinder 3 has bad valves, low compression, I was told from another shop that looked at it. He wants us to confirm that, and if it is, possibly pull the head and do a head job and fix it up. Engine light is on, so we're doing a full system scan right now. Let it finish up here using the mini program with our auto. But it should be pretty easy to do the compression check on these. If it is a valve leaking, maybe we can use a leak down tester, throw it up on the lift, see if we can determine if it's the intake valve, exhaust valve, right? If that's what's going on, we don't know yet. So we'll let this thing finish scanning here. Alright, it's finishing up right now. Come on, finish. There we go. So let's go to report. Alright, so the DMEs that I'm concerned about, digital engine gearbox control unit. Yeah, right there. Cylinder 3, misfire detected. There's coil codes, but that's probably from somebody running it before, trying to do a compression test at the other shop perhaps. But we got cylinder 3. All these other ABS ones, speed sensors, we're not concerned with that right now. Airbag stuff. Anyways, not concerned with that. Let's just erase all these. And then let's go ahead and run it. Look at if we can get some live data for misfire data. And see what we can get from there. Already we cleared all the codes. For the engine, we'll take a look at that. Read codes. No codes. Let me see if I can find some misfire data. So misfire data, we're going to go under live data. Misfire smooth running values. Let me go ahead and start it up. Alright, right now our engine light is off. It was on earlier because we cleared the codes. Alright, so let's see what we got here. Well, that's everything. Misfire value over 200 RPMs. Cylinder 2 had a little bit. Smooth running value. If you look at 2, went away. They're all about the same. Roughly, we could graph those. Well, let's go back and look. It can't be a bad misfire, because if it was bad, it would have thrown the engine light right now. It would be flashing, which we don't have. I would feel it, and it actually seems like it's running decently smooth. Yeah. Feels like it's running decently smooth. If it goes down a cylinder, we would know. For example, let me move this over here. The scan tool there. No misfires. Let's unplug cylinder 3. Now showing 2's misfiring. Look at that. 2's got a direct misfire. You can see it in the smooth running values, it's way negative. And 2, even though that's cylinder number 3, goes right back, doing the cylinder drop test. That should be 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll verify that. That's the front of the engine. Let's pull 2. And that shows 4 misfiring now. What the heck? Put that one back. Pull number 1. That's definitely number 1. The top one's doing it. I'm going to restart it and clear the codes here. Let's read the codes first. We unplugged 1, 2, and 3. We didn't do 4. Just shows number 3 right there. Look at that. We unplugged 1, 2, 3, nothing with 4, and it's showing number 3 misfiring. Hit the wrong button. Go back. Just erase them and pull forward and see what we get. Go back to misfires. Start it back up. Engine light should go out. We're good. It's running smooth again. So I know when these things start misfiring, they will shut injectors off and stuff like that. But right now, showing 2's misfiring. Yeah, look at 2. It's way negative on the smooth running values. And it's showing there. Well, let's unplug 3, because that's, to me, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Look, and number 2 on the scan tool goes way up on right there, right there. Negative on the smooth running values. Let's put it back in. Stopped. So they're calling that 2 on the scan tool live data, but it's actually misfiring on 3. So this is 3. Let's pull 4. That's number 3 now. I pulled 4, but number 3 is misfiring on there. You can see by the negative numbers and the smooth learning value negative numbers and the misfire over 200 RPM number. So let's clear these codes. And yeah, see, now we got an engine light flashing because it's misfiring. Because it will shut injectors off as well. So you don't burn your cats down. Let's read these codes. We unplug 3 and 4. See what we got here. We got Phil Collins playing. Okay, cylinder 3, always 1 or more cylinders misfire detected. So C0300, let's erase these codes. Make sure there's no codes. Boom. Everything's plugged back in. Let's start it again. And see, our engine light will go out right about now. Right there. So right now it's not misfiring, it's running really smooth. Running good. Go to live data, misfire data. So this is misfiring, cylinder 2 is misfiring, but which is actually 3 on here. The live data showing it's 2, but it's actually 3 on the engine. It's just the way, I guess, that crank sensor, knock sensor is picking up, and the live data I'm not sure. But I've seen that before, where cylinder misfires the one next to it, shows the data, and vice versa. So we definitely got a cylinder misfire on this cylinder here from all those tests we just did. So what I want to do now is I want to do a compression check on all the cylinders and go from there. Oh, since it was misfiring, I just shut it off. Reading codes, there's nothing there because it's not misfiring bad enough to cause that. So, like I said, we'll, or to cause it to throw a code, yeah, it eventually will. We're going to do cylinder drop test, not cylinder drop test, cylinder compression test next. Alright, what I'm going to do now real quick is basically a clear flood crank, but I unplugged the ignition coil connector so it won't spark. I just want to crank it over with it not running and see if I can hear an odd tone. Should be even tones. If you hear an odd one, we got a dead cylinder. Or low compression if it's that bad. Sounds pretty even. Maybe there's one little dead spot in there. Not real dead, but a little low. We'll confirm that with the compression test on the cylinders next. Alright, got cylinder 1 in there, plug out. Got the ignition harness unplugged so we don't let it start. And let's do a compression check on all these cylinders. I don't know if you can see that there when I do this. Let me get this set up. Here we go, a few cranks. All right, let's take a look what we got. Cylinder 1, we got, come on, focus, 180. Let's do 2 next. All right, you can see the plugs look pretty much brand new. All right, we're doing number 2 now. I put one back together. Let's take a look. Zoom in so you can see. The key in. Here we go. All the same as we did before. Trying to do the same amount of strokes on the engine. All right, we got 170. 170. Let's do 3 next. Alrighty, let's do number 3 now. This is suspected bad one. I would think it'd have lower compression than the other ones, but we'll take a look. The key in. Here we go. Yeah, it's definitely lower. Same amount of strokes or cranks. And we got 130, which is cylinder 3. 180 to 130. Let's do number 4. Let's do number 4 next. Let's see where we're at. All right, last one, number 4. Everything else is back in. Grab the keys. Zoom in for you guys. Here we go. Looks good. Same amount of cranks. Looks like it hit 180. Yeah, 180, 185. So that's good. So now, what I need to do is obviously we got very weak compression, a little weak. Let's write these down. So good, good, that's okay, bad. Now we can look up the specs in the service data for, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, because that's from the engine. We can look up the compression specs, but this should all be a lot, you know, this 130 to 180s, that's a huge difference, and that's one that's misfiring. That's our scan tool codes told us that. Now the live data is a little off because of the way the knock sensor, crank sensor reads, but I've seen that before on vehicles. So, is it an intake valve, is it an exhaust valve, or is it a head gasket in the middle? Who knows, right? That's leaking, that's starting to separate. What we could do now is you can put on the lift and do a leak down test with another tool, determine what is actually going on. We may or may not do that next. All right, before I do that, put a little bit of oil in that cylinder. We're going to redo the test here on just that cylinder, because if it's rings and you put oil on it, it brings the compression up. It tells us we got bad rings, which we could do with the leak down test if you hear it in the crankcase air blowing, but it's a real quick check here. Let's do the same thing. Put some oil on that cylinder. Just go right now. Holy crap. I think I put too much oil in it because it's got so much compression. I'm going to do that again. I brought it way, 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 way up. But you're like, man, that's got to be some weak rings. Let's do it again. Yep. That made a huge difference. Putting oil in there. Yeah, there's oil in my gauge now. Alrighty. I blew some of that oil out of there. Let's put a couple of drops in it. Put a little bit more in. So that might give us a false indication, but we'll see here. I cleaned a bunch of the oil out. Let's do it again. Yeah, I mean, I cleaned a bunch out and it's completely better with that. So what we need to do next though is we need to do the leak down test. We can prove that it's in an intake valve, exhaust valve, head gasket, or in this case maybe rings if we hear it leaking down through the crankcase. So we'll probably do that next. All right, we're gonna do a leak down test real quick. So I got access to the crank here. I'm just turning this crank pulley. So I got that rod there in the cylinder all the way so it moves to the very top. On the compression stroke, how do you know it's on the compression stroke? As long as a puff of air comes out, it's kind of hard to see on this one. You can always pull the valve cover, which is kind of a pain. It's not too bad, but we'll leave them on the compression stroke now, and I'll check it one. I'll turn it another 360 and make sure as well, just to see. But get our air compressor built up with pressure. Take my leak down tester here, thread this in here, cylinder 3. And then I have the air hose hooked up. I'm gonna turn this dial until I zero it out on the gauge. Oh, too much. Get it to 0. Right there, and I can lock it. I'm gonna hook this up. So we got pressure going in. If you look, our leakage is 25, 30, 33%, which is in the green. So it's not too bad. But remember, we put oil in there. So maybe we do got rings or something. I'm gonna turn it another round, time around, and make sure we can compare other cylinders and get you a good idea. So I turned it around again, and now I'm on actually the compression stroke. I checked it there. We're at 30% leakage, which ain't too bad. But remember, I put oil in there. So now the valves are shut. What you essentially do is, if you heard it off the tailpipe leaking, you would have an exhaust valve. You heard it off the intake tube, you'd have an intake valve. You heard it bubbling in the coolant tank, radiator, head gasket. Hear it in the crankcase, rings. So I turned the pressure up a little bit there, and I can hear it bubbling. It's kind of hard to hear with that air compressor, but I hear air leaking in here a little bit. But I can feel air back in the exhaust. It's a little bit of air coming there. We'll pull that air intake there and take a look at that. When I move the radiator cap, I didn't see nothing in there bubbling. I don't hear nothing in here. I don't really hear it in the back. Like, I can feel some, I think I'm feeling some air. You can't hear it though. I can't hear nothing on back here. Yeah, I don't feel nothing back there. So not an exhaust valve. I don't hear nothing up here in the intake, but I definitely hear it in the crankcase. I don't know if you guys can hear that because the damn air compressor's on. I turned it off. Let's see if you can hear now. I turned everything off, all the AC units in the shop. So nothing in the intake, but I can definitely hear it. Like I can hear it in the crankcase, which makes sense for rings because you don't hear it in the exhaust either. Which makes sense for rings. So again, if there's an exhaust valve, off the exhaust intake valve, off the intake head gasket, coolant. I hear it in the crankcase, which I think that's what we hear. Rings, we proved that we're putting oil in there. So no matter what, this thing needs the, turn this air pressure down. This thing needs the head pulled. Since you're going to pull the head, definitely do a head job. But we need to look at those pistons and rings and cylinders. Is it worth it for fixing this car? I'm not sure. I have to basically quote it all for this guy and see what he wants to do. So that is it for this video. I know I said I was done, but I'm going to do cylinder 1 here. We know that's a good compression one. Look, we got 23% leakage, 24% leakage, which is better than it was 34, 35%. Let me turn on 180 again and make sure we're on TDC. The better one would be the TDC one, but we're well in the green there. Yeah, so I was on TDC there. I moved it around again and it got a lot worse. But you can see when we had a good one there, it was 25, 24%, whatever it was. Much better in cylinder 3. I mean, it still runs, but it's misfiring because of compression issues. And I'll crank the air up on this one here, and you hear a little bit of air, but not like number 3 was. So again, head needs to come off. Definitely needs, I mean, we'll do a head job, but the rings are what leak. We proved that with the oil test and the leak down test. I'm not sure if he wants to do that because, well, basically it needs to be a rebuilt engine. So that is it for this video.